Welcome to week 23 of the Top Self-Care Program. I'm Patricia Amborn, and this week we'll wrap up our discussion on the elements of spirituality by talking about the pursuit of happiness and the role of work in our lives. Next week we'll start our final section by providing some advice on how to balance your life, how to get unstuck, and how to stop making excuses. The following week we'll wrap up the entire program. So although it's hard to believe, we are almost to the end of our self-care journey. For now, though, we still have some work to do. So get comfortable, grab your journal or a notebook, and let's get started. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is one of the most well-known phrases from the United States Declaration of Independence, and it's considered to be one of the most influential of all English sentences. We may not have memorized the rest of that famous document, but we do know that the founders of the United States and the founders of many other countries viewed the pursuit of happiness as an unalienable right, meaning that it's something that cannot be taken away from us. And although this concept is an ancient one, we still have the right to pursue happiness in our current time. So, how's your pursuit of happiness going? Is it working for you? Happiness obviously means different things to different people, but if you look up the definition of the word happiness, it means anything that brings you pleasure, joy, or contentment, or makes you feel fortunate and blessed. We've talked about some serious self-care concepts in the past several weeks, and this week, we're going to encourage you to get serious about happiness. Happiness is not only your right, but being happy makes you healthy.
There have been several studies conducted about the benefits of being happy. Researchers have found that happy people live longer. They're less likely to become disabled, have improved immune systems, and are less likely to develop heart problems. Happy people are more likely to be married, stay married, and to experience more feelings of personal well-being. Happy people are also more satisfied with their jobs, and some studies have found that they even earn more money than people who are unhappy. Happy people are less depressed, less suicidal, less paranoid. So how does being happy lead to all of these benefits? Researchers found that happy people have better self-control and better coping skills. This may be the key to all the other findings. Does being happy lead us to having better self-control and coping skills, or does it work the other way around? Can practicing self-control and developing positive coping skills make us happy? Here's something for you to consider. Controlling our thoughts and behaviors and being able to positively cope with the challenges we face help us to make better choices. And our choices affect our experiences, which ultimately affect our attitude. Our attitude affects everything we do, what we think, how we live, what we eat, and how we behave. It may be a question that's never answered. What comes first, happiness or self-control? But regardless of the answer, being happy has a lot going for it. Being happy as an attitude is something that you can choose. If feeling happy is not your style and it's not natural for you, there are some actions you can take that will help you be more optimistic about your life. One way to do this is to use your journal. Write down 5 things that make you happy. Then brainstorm to come up with ways that you can increase your enjoyment of these 5 things. So, for example, if you listed your family, your dog, being outside, reading, and cooking, you might list that you can all go outside and that you could walk or even brush your dog while being outside. You could list planting vegetables or fruits that your family could help you plant and then harvest, and that you could later cook. You can also list having reading nights where you all gather to listen to someone read. Once you start to list these types of activities or things that make you happy, you can actually start making time to do these things. Your outlook and your attitude will improve. Experts think there are a few key elements of happiness, and that they're related to our relationships, finding work we love, having time for recreation, and having time for learning and for spiritual growth. Review your list of 5 things. See if you've included these elements. If you haven't, then you need to add more things to your list to incorporate them into your life. The more things you do that make you happy, the happier you'll be. In 1913, Eleanor H. Porter wrote a book called Pollyanna. It's about a young orphan girl who developed the habit of finding something positive and something to be glad about in every situation. In 1960, the book was made into a movie, and some of us may remember how the young girl changed the attitude of an entire New England town, and she did it by playing what she called the glad game. For example, when her father, who was a missionary, was still alive, one day his church sent a package for Pollyanna, and instead of the doll she wanted, she received a set of crutches. Her father encouraged her to find something to be thankful for, and she eventually decided that she was glad she did not need the crutches. Later, as an orphan living with her unhappy aunt, Pollyanna used the glad game to cope with her own loneliness and stress. Soon, her attitude and her behavior transformed the entire town. Today, the word Pollyanna means an eternal optimist or an unrealistically optimistic person. The reality is, we all have a choice about the way we feel about events in our lives. We can choose to be devastated by our circumstances or find some sort of blessing in the situation. Regardless of how we feel, the tragedy or the situation still exists. Finding something to be glad about or feeling blessed about can help us to survive tragic moments and to move forward with some degree of peace. Finding something to be glad about can help us to feel less stressed, more in control. It can positively influence our behavior. When we feel less stressed and more in control, we will be less inclined to practice mindless eating and more inclined to practice healthy behaviors. Another way to find happiness is to make every attempt to live in the present moment. It's hard to enjoy anything you're doing if you're thinking about lots of other things, or if you're worried about something. We've talked about practicing mindful behavior, and living in the moment is what we mean by this. It's hard to enjoy anything, a fresh salad, a walk in the sun, petting your dog, accomplishing a task, or listening to a loved one, if you're not fully there. In the past few weeks, we've provided you with some exercises that will help you to practice mindful behavior, like mindful eating, being aware of your body, your breathing, practicing meditation, being aware of your thoughts and your behaviors. We've even asked you to be mindful of the stuff that you buy and the money that you spend. We encourage you to pay attention to the world around you, to your loved ones, your behaviors, your thoughts and your words. Paying attention and being mindful will help you to live in the moment and not in the past or in the future. Living in the moment will help you to find more enjoyment in the things that you do. Our last bit of advice on how to be happy is to put people first. Last week, we talked about the role your possessions and your money play in your self-care plan. We talked about how people who lose their possessions in natural disasters will almost always say that it's only stuff, and that they're really thankful that they and their loved ones survived. We've also talked about having an appropriate relationship with food. This week, we want to encourage you to stop using material possessions or money or food to make yourself feel better. Instead, think about how you can feel better if you put people first. One way to do this is to volunteer. Volunteering provides many benefits. Offering your skills and your time helps you to be a part of your community. It also helps you to be a part of something larger than yourself. You can be exposed to other people who may need your help. This alone will help you put your life and your personal challenges in perspective. You may even get a boost in your self-esteem level. You'll be more aware of the blessings that you have in your life. You'll also get to return some of the blessings that your community has given you. Volunteering is an opportunity to give back. Volunteering can also give you the chance to learn new skills, meet diverse people, and make your little corner of the world better. One person by themselves can't usually change the world, but one person can make a difference. Most people who volunteer are happier than those people who don't. This week, we're encouraging you to think about how you can make a difference in someone's life, and by volunteering, change your life as well, while making the world a better place. You may find it odd that we're talking about work as a spiritual element, and that we're talking about it the same week we're talking about happiness. But there is a reason for this. Being happy is important. When you stop to think about how much of your life you spend at work, Doesn't it make sense to try to be happy at work? Is it possible to be happy at work? Some of us are fortunate to understand what we're passionate about at an early age and to focus our efforts, energy, and our resources on pursuing our passion. For others, we were too busy listening to other people advise us on suitable professions, or we just didn't know what we wanted to do. So we spend years of our lives trying different careers until we find one that works. It's difficult to determine exactly how many people change careers over their life, but many studies indicate that we all have between 5 and 7 different careers in a lifetime. One study reported between the ages of 18 and 38, we may have 10 different jobs. The experts differentiate between a job and a career, though. Regardless of which word you use, it represents work, and that's defined as paid employment at a job. And most of us spend most of our time at our job. Humans have been working throughout history, so there are many philosophies about work. Buddha, the founder of the Buddhist religion, who was born in 560 BC, said, "Your work is to discover your work, and then, with all your heart, to give yourself to it." Aristotle, the ancient Greek philosopher, said, "Where your talents and the needs of the world cross, there lies your vocation." All of us throughout history have asked ourselves at one time or another, why am I here? Work plays a key role in our lives because we spend at least a third of our lives working. So as part of a self-care plan, it's important to ask yourself if you love your work. If the answer is yes, congratulations, you're one of the fortunate ones. If not, you may want to consider how to make changes in your work life, because if you're not happy at work, chances are you'll not be happy in your life, and this can cause significant health problems. When you're bored, under-challenged, stressed, or burned out on the job, you can turn to mindless behavior. You can even turn to mindless eating to make yourself feel better. It may not surprise you to find out that if you have job stress, it accounts for a significant amount of personal misery and suffering, and that can result in physical and mental health issues. But it may surprise you to find out that when employees do not like their job, or when they're burned out from their job, employers lose billions of dollars each year in terms of productivity, revenue, wages, and medical bills. When you're not happy with your job, you can experience job burnout. This can make you feel like you don't have any control and that you ultimately don't care about life. When you don't care about your life, you can make bad choices that affect your health. The symptoms of job burnout are pessimism, an increasing feeling of dissatisfaction, lower morale, frequent absenteeism, inefficiency, lost or lower productivity, even employee theft. So while work and the way you feel about your work affects you on many levels, it also affects your employer and ultimately the economy of the world. Finding a job that fulfills you and makes you happy will improve your physical, emotional, spiritual, as well as your financial health. Finding your passion and working for the employer of your choice will help your employer to be successful because you'll be happy. So how do you find work that makes you feel like you want to get out of bed each morning? The experts think that you should ask yourself the following questions. What in life inspires you and makes you feel happy? What things are you naturally good at? What do you enjoy doing? What's important to you? What are you passionate about? How can you serve or help others by sharing your talents? What are you doing when time just seems to fly by? You can also consider the compliments you get. Think about what your friends and your family compliment you for, and think about what you were doing the last time someone told you that you should start your own business. These questions and these ideas can help you discover your true calling or your vocation in life. Remember the definition of work? Paid employment at a job. The definition of a calling or a vocation is the feeling that you're destined to undertake a specific profession. Destiny. Now that sounds spiritual to me. You've probably heard the philosophy that if you do what you love, that the money will follow. It's obviously hard to measure the truth of this statement, and to be realistic, you may pursue doing something you love, and the money may not follow. We all can't just stop what we're doing and follow our bliss, or can we? Throughout this program, we've encouraged you to think about your life in many aspects and to identify ways that you can make changes so that you can have a higher quality of life. We've also encouraged you to develop a plan for any changes that you make So, if thinking about the role that work has in your life results in you considering making some significant work related changes, then you have to do your homework. You have to spend time thinking about what it is you want to be doing. Then, you need to figure out how you'll accomplish that. This takes a strategy, which identifies the steps you'll need to take and the resources you'll need. This is going to require research, and it will also take courage and patience. We'd like to share with you two comments from the Swiss philosopher and writer Jean-Jacques Rousseau. The first one is that everyone has the right to risk their own life in order to save it. And the second is, it's too difficult to think nobly when one thinks only of money. Perhaps these two quotes will inspire you to make the work-related changes you need to make in order to be happy.
This week, we wrapped up our discussion on the role that spirituality can have in our self-care plan by talking about the importance of happiness and the role of work in our lives. We reminded you that you have a right to pursue what makes you happy, and that being happy has many mental, physical, spiritual, and financial health benefits. We gave you some tips on how to identify what makes you happy, and we discussed how playing the glad game, living in the moment, and putting other people first can make you happier. We also talked about the role that work plays in a self-care plan, and we provided you with some questions to ask yourself in order to help you to identify your passion. We encouraged you to consider if your job is work or a vocation. We asked you to spend some time reflecting on what you feel your destiny is. We also reminded you that if you think you need to make a work-related change, that it takes strategy, research, courage, and patience to be successful. We hope you use your journal this week to reflect on the role that both happiness and work have in your life. And we hope that you also think about the role that happiness and work have in your eating behavior. We hope you're inspired to make some changes that will bring you joy and good health. Well, that's it for this week. We hope you found this information on the spiritual elements of a self-care plan thought-provoking, helpful, and life-changing. We only have 2 more weeks left. Next week, we'll start to wrap up this entire self-care program by talking about how to balance your life, get unstuck, and how to stop making excuses. The following week is our final week, and we'll summarize the entire course by discussing some of the highlights. Have a great week, everyone, and remember, happiness is a choice, and only you can make it.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have any comments?
Whole bunches. Pretty number one, this is biblically based, except for my definition, or the definition I've learned of joy is more their definition of happiness. And then I remember Romans 8:28, all things work for good for those who love the Lord and called according to his purpose. So I've said that before. That is I mean, that's my foundation, and I see how he's worked, even through like the ears and Danny's feet, his 3 surgeries, and never broken a limb before in his life. And also in nursing and in teaching and in lawyers, and I'm pretty much sure any vocation now, there's such a thing called reality shock, where people they have a honeymoon phase and everything's so wonderful, this vocation's so wonderful, and then reality sets in and they're shocked, and then sometimes discouraged, and then they can be bitter, can get to be burned out, and they have choices. One choice is to be a rutter. They just stay in the rut to pay for the house, pay for the car, pay for the washing machine, just stay there in a rut. Or they arabesque this job. Oh, this hill is greener and better. Oh no, oh, I heard about this job. And then they arabesque to another job, and they
Mhm.
just go from job to job. And then those that stick with it and learn, like my husband is a really good example of that, is a biculturalist. You learn to work in your environment and not break the rules per se, but make things work for themselves. Just a dumb example I remember from that, Dr. Marlene Kramer and all her research, but it's been done in many vocations. She worked at a small hospital, and she would was the evening night supervisor, and she'd get stuck. She'd have patients come in, they'd be hungry, and she'd have no food, or she'd have to go rustle up something herself, and she didn't have that. So one night she just charged it to the pizza place and charged pizza to the hospital. And after that, they decided, oh, we better make some arrangements and make some food choices. So if patients come in, I mean, there's all kinds of examples that you can come up in your own life, how you have had to be flexible and be a biculturalist, because we all suffer reality shock in some way or someplace. That's it.
Thank you. Very good. Okay.
I wanted to share in this part, the part about being happy and loving yourself and making a list of 5 things that make you happy,
Mhm.
and how being unhappy can cause you to be ill and not appreciating life. And I was happy to hear that and to share it with someone that I know could use that, because they're ill all the time and finding fault when somebody else hasn't done something for them. And I appreciate that information.
All right. I like this idea of the glad game. Um, you know, whatever life throws at you, you find something good in it. Um, sometimes it's hard, but there's always good in it.
Yeah.
What about living in the moment? Any comments on that?
Um, for me.
I haven't done as well lately, but I do try to chew my food. I know we're supposed to chew it 25 to 35 times, or at least until it's mushy applesauce thing. Well, that might be exactly what they're talking about, mindful eating. I mean, not having too many distractions, but it helps me to slow down and think about. And I was talking to a grandchild the other Saturday, and they just wolfed something down quickly. I said, no, eat it slowly and savor it. It was a grandson, of course. He's 11 years old, so he's just going to take 2 bites and it's gone.
Yeah.
And I was just saying, slow down, enjoy it. It was his other grandma's cooking, and she is like amazing. So I said, oh, and when it was a pumpkin cookie. Now she doesn't just make pumpkin cookies. She takes the fresh pumpkin. She cooks the fresh pumpkin and bakes it everything from scratch. So he's taking her pumpkin cookie. He's just going it down like it's like gone. What is it?
Let's see. When they were talking about this right here, the 10 different jobs, this is where my son is at. Because it seems like he finds a job, he comes on, he's real excited, and then the next week he's moving on to something else. So, and I know that a lot of people, they try to they got to find their way in the world, and they've got to find something that they enjoy. I hear so many people that spend, 2 to 4 years in college, and then when they come out, they're doing something, their career is something completely different than what they went to school for. So just what you think you'll enjoy is not always the case. I've been lucky to find jobs that I've really enjoyed. I've had 3 jobs in my life, and all of them computer related, of course. But I've been very fortunate to have the jobs that I do. Um, and you know, doing tops is not a job that I ever thought I would do when I was younger. But I love it. I'd do it full time if I could afford it. But all right. All right. Anybody else got a reason to get out of bed? No. Some people don't think they have reasons to get out of bed. And that's the ones that stay depressed and stay in bed all the time. So we just need to, you know, be thankful that we can get up and that we have things to do. Um, that gives us purpose. All right. Anybody else got any comments?
Irene, you gotta have a comment.
Yeah, I do. My mic has been off and I've been talking.
Oh,
Rhonda, go back.
go
to
back
this.
to
Yeah. Let's see. What are you doing when time seems to fly? And I think probably maybe that's something that all of us could think about. Especially when you get into a situation, maybe whatever's happening is boring to you. And then maybe you should start thinking about what was it that you were involved in that you really liked and that really made it well. And it just seems like, gee, it's time to get out already. This is over with already. And so maybe that's one of the ways that we should think about that. What are we naturally good at? We're not always good at everything we think we are, but people will usually let you know too if you're good at whatever it is you're doing, and then you can assess it also yourself to see. So I think those are really some good things. We really do have to find out what makes us happy.
oh yeah.
What makes us happy? And of course, I will always tell people, whatever you choose to do, pray about it before you do it. It just goes a long way. But that's me.
Oh yeah.
Vocation, a feeling that you are destined to undertake a specific profession. And that's true. Like your son, I've had about maybe 10 jobs. So yeah, I get it. I do get it. And then when I found that passion one that I love, the hours were horrible and all of that, but I loved it. I had to travel all the time, but I loved it. So eventually it's out there, and eventually he will find it.
Yeah.
After about number 5 job, I stopped looking for more money because this would pay 5 cents more, but look what you got to put up with for that extra nickel an hour. So
Right.
then I stopped that, and then of course when I went to school and all, now I could get paid professionally, and so not be an hourly employee. But those are things that people really should think about. What really makes you happy?
Yep.
And hopefully it's something other than food.
Well,
When
food
I
does make
owned,
you happy, but go ahead, Carol.
when I owned my own business,
Mm.
people would come in and they'd be frowning. And my goal was to make them smile before they got out the door. And most of the time I did.
That
We,
was a great goal.
we
Well, it
used to,
makes you feel better too.
Mhm. We used to have a train room where an LPG train ran around the ceiling, And when they hit that room, the smile was there. Especially if they had a child with them.
Was that in Dahlonega?
Yes,
Wow.
I think this one is true too, because it says, the money, do what you love, the money will follow. And then it also says the money may not follow, and that is true also. The
Yep.
money may not follow, but it will be probably the best job is one that you love and everything. And I think
Mhm.
probably maybe a lot of us do fall into that, the money may not follow, but you do have to be happy at what it is that you're doing. So I think that's a good one. Really, really do what you love.
Yeah. Well, and if you're really doing what you love, um, and you're not making the money that you thought you might, you still learn to live within what you're making. It's not so it's not always a bad thing
That's
if
true.
the money doesn't follow. You just work harder at it, I guess. Okay.
I thought I looked at it as like a game, like a kid playing house or something. Some of the fun things, like when we moved to a place and we just had boxes, I'd turn a box over for a table and a box or so for the kids to play with. And we just had a certain amount of goods that came, household goods that came first. And I enjoyed that because we didn't have very much to keep up with. So it was just the attitude.
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, people spend a lot of money on buying toys for the kids at Christmas, and then they end up playing with the box the toy came in, and
Yes.
they're having a ball, and it's the box that the toy was actually in. So yes, that's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
This right here, our attitude will help us cope and practice healthy behavior. I think attitude goes a long way with whatever you do, good or bad.
True.
Positive attitudes count.
Yes, definitely. Definitely.
I told you, I think my story before, the first mental health nurse practitioner in the state of Georgia was at our at the hospital that I worked. And I just remember her talking about stress and big things. She said, you don't remember anything else, just remember 2 words, be flexible. So that was probably that was in the 80s when I heard that. I lived a lot of time not in Georgia then, just happened to live in Georgia then. And that was in the 80s. And I remember that. It was somewhere between 81 and 85 and made an impact.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else have any comments? All right. So next week's program is Balance Your Life, Get Unstuck, and Stop Excuses. And this is our next to the last meeting. I mean, not meeting, but video. So we'll be back next week for that.